I'm Roberta Glass, and you're listening to my True Crime Report. Today, I have a very special guest, my mother, who will be talking about Prince Andrew and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Welcome, Mom.
Thank you, darling.
So, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in the royal family?
I became interested in the royal family when I was about 9 years old. There were Princess Elizabeth and her sister Margaret Rose, perfectly dressed, white socks, beautiful coats, wonderful dogs, corgis. But what I really loved was that the Welsh people gave the little princesses a thatched cottage that had real running water, and the stoves worked, and it had real glass windows that went up and beautiful little curtains, and it was just right for a little person. And I thought that was the most wonderful thing.
How old were you when you saw this thatched cottage?
I've never seen it. It's in Windsor. It's in Windsor Palace, around Windsor Castle, I believe.
So you saw a picture of it?
I had a book about it, actually. I have to confess. I had many books about them and scrapbooks full of pictures of the Queen and her husband. I just thought they were wonderful, perfect, and the diamond tiaras. I really liked those too.
So so you've kind of as like a life hobby have read about the royal family.
I have wasted many an hour on very poor royal books, I have to confess, but when I was 12 years old, my dad gave me a Welsh corgi, and I've had corgis ever since. I love them. I agree with the Queen about her corgis because they're very independent and very lively little dogs. Love them.
And as we talk, one is right sitting at your feet, and she might be making some noise through this. So for those who don't know, who is Prince Andrew?
Prince Andrew is Queen Elizabeth's second son. She had two sets of families, really. When she was, after she was married for a year, she produced Prince Charles in 1948 and Princess Anne in 1950. And then 12 years later, she had Prince Andrew. And because her father was very ill when she had her first child, and because she had to take over many of his duties, she really didn't bond with those two older children, but she bonded with Prince Andrew, and it is said that he's her favorite child. He's been indulged. She just thinks he's wonderful, but I think we might know otherwise.
Right, and you said she played you were telling me she played
hide and seek with him, which I doubt very much she had the time to do with the others.
And so what do we know about Prince Andrew's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, I think it goes back 20 years. He seems to be a person who's very enamored of great wealth, and certainly Jeffrey Epstein displayed that. He had a house in the Virgin Islands, an island, I believe, a house in Palm Beach, a huge house in New York. He must have dazzled Prince Andrew.
That's hard to believe coming from someone who lived in a palace. Do you think that he also has had relationships with...
Well, rich people like to stick with other rich people.
That is true. And Prince Andrew has also made some friends with some other sketchy people.
Very dodgy people. He, the son-in-law of the president of Kazakhstan, bought his Sunningdale, Surrey mansion, which was derelict. Nobody wanted to buy it. And he paid £3 million more than the asking price and then tore it down. Very mysterious. He's also been involved with a Libyan arms smuggler and another, the son of Gaddafi. He was palsy with him. I mean, very dodgy people.
And what is his?
His MO? He is not well liked in the WikiLeaks cable that was released a few years ago. It said that he was arrogant. The American ambassador said he was arrogant and cocky. And he is disliked by the palace staff, I understand. And he's very full of himself, I would say. He's not particularly somebody you'd really want to have supper with.
And when he was younger, he had a reputation as a playboy.
It was called Randy Andy, and when he worked as the Queen's trade representative, which he did for 10 years until he had to step down because of the first Epstein scandal, he was known as Air Miles Andy because he took so many helicopters. And the job was unpaid, but he got expenses, and he seems to have made a lot of very odd contacts with this job. And anyway, he had to step down 10 years ago when he was no longer really a very favorable representative of the Queen.
And do you know anything? I heard that he made some kind of investments from the contacts that he made.
He seems to have made this. I don't know too much about that, but I'm sure they were lucrative to him.
Right, from the people he met.
Yeah.
Being the
certainly was lucrative
ambassador.
If somebody buys your house for £3 million over the asking price. That seems like a pretty unusual situation.
Yeah.
And the house was derelict.
So there have been 3 statements released, 2 by the palace and 1 by Prince Andrew himself, addressing the Epstein scandal and his role in it. And I'd just like to read the one that he released. And he wrote, "It is apparent to me since the suicide of Mr. Epstein that there has been an immense amount of media speculation about so much in his life. This is particularly the case in relation to my former association or friendship with Mr. Epstein," Andrew said. "I met Mr. Epstein in 1999. During the time I knew him, I saw him infrequently and probably no more than once or twice a year. I have stayed in a number of his residencies. At no stage during the limited time I spent with him did I see, witness, or suspect any behavior of the sort that subsequently led to his arrest and conviction. I have said previously that it was a mistake and an error to see him after his release in 2010, and I can only reiterate my regret that I was mistaken to think that what I thought I knew of him was evidently not the real person, given what we know now. I have tremendous sympathy for all those affected by his actions and behavior. His suicide has left many unanswered questions, and I acknowledge and sympathize with everyone who has been affected and wants some form of closure. This is a difficult time for everyone involved, and I am at loss to be able to understand or explain Mr. Epstein's lifestyle. I deplore the exploitation of any human being and would not condone, participate in, or encourage any such behavior." Now, what do you think of that statement?
I say that is preposterous. Just not credible. And he knew this Mr. Epstein for 20 years and had no idea what was going on when everyone called the plane the Lolita Express, when he had very young women all around him. It just is not credible.
And I think one of the investigators in Florida said just the artwork alone that he had in his Florida mansion should have given anyone a clue. And I heard the same for his Manhattan townhouse, that he kept a lot of, kind of pornographic type, I don't know what you call it, artwork that would clue you in.
Suggestive artwork.
Suggestive would be probably a better word, thank you. And I think that Prince Andrew is probably caught more than anyone else because we have the video of him. Can you talk about what's in the video?
The video is Prince Andrew in New York in this $72 million mansion that Jeffrey Epstein owned, waving goodbye to a young woman. We see Jeffrey Epstein very boldly and confidently walking down the street as some poor young woman is running, holding her breasts, kind of
Hunching her
the
shoulders.
and
Yeah.
looking terrified. We see him, and we see Prince Andrew merrily waving goodbye to a young woman, and like he's at home, like he belongs there. It's very, very revealing and
And disturbing.
very disturbing.
Because he's around all this abuse and he's just kind of, reveling, having a great old time.
Yes.
I mean, there is no way you could look at that girl. I don't know what her age was, but she looks underage.
She looks about 13, 14 perhaps.
Yeah,
Very young, very young.
with Epstein and not know. And his statement seems to suggest that Epstein was some master of disguise that's only being revealed after his death, when Prince Andrew had, met with Epstein after he was arrested.
And even our president said that he liked women, beautiful women, as much as he did, but Epstein liked them on the younger side. So Trump knew this. Everybody, I'm sure it was like an open secret where everybody looked the other way.
Right. And so there also have been, what does the most outspoken victim, Virginia Roberts Giuffre, alleges that she was victimized by Prince Andrew. What does she say happened?
She says that she was victimized, trafficked to him 3 times, once in London at Giselle Maxwell's home. They went to a nightclub. He ordered her, she thinks, a vodka, and then they came back, and he had sex with her. Then I believe another time in his island in the Virgin Islands, and once in New York. 3 times, she says. She says because she was taking a lot of pills at the time, that she might be inaccurate about the dates, but she remembers faces, and I'm sure she does.
I'm sure. I mean, and she said, "You don't forget meeting a prince." She said Ghislaine Maxwell said to her, "You're going to meet a prince today."
And she thought, because she watched Disney things, that a prince was good, but maybe not this prince.
Yeah, and she also said that he thanked her after sex, which I found
he was
so
very
weird.
sweaty and a poor dancer, she said.
Yeah, you can only imagine what that means for his sexual prowess.
Yes.
Right? So what makes her story more credible is a picture. What is the picture of?
Picture is in Giselle Maxwell's London home with Prince Andrew around her bare midriff, his arm around her bare midriff. And he looks very happy. She looks pretty excited, and there they are. And Giselle Maxwell is in the background on the right side, smiling. So, and I don't think it's a doctored picture. It's a little camera she apparently carried around and wanted a snap of the prince with her.
Right, but so there has been some of his support. He's had sort of older supporters. They all seem to be over 70 in the UK who've come out and said that the picture is doctored, and why?
Well, they say you can only, in the picture, and I've looked at it a few times, you can only see his fingers around her waist, and the person who is defending Prince Andrew says his fingers are thin and these fingers are chubby, but you can only barely see the tips of his fingers, so I don't really think that's a credible defense.
Right, and it's interesting that's usually you hear about ears don't change. You can always identify someone by their ears. I know that you remarked on that with another royal, what do you call that, conspiracy?
See, that was Anastasia, that the tutor said her ears were nothing like this.
Someone came forward as a fake Anastasia.
Yes, it was quite a big thing in the 50s, the fake Anastasia, which turned out she was a factory worker in Germany. But no, and also she didn't speak either English, which the Russian royal spoke. Anyway, so That's neither.
But that's, that's a
That's
way to identify someone. Fingerprints are another, but I've never heard of finger size
No.
in a picture, which is, depending on the angle, we all know we've all taken a bad picture. It just seems like such a weak defense. Another person who's come forward to support Prince Andrew is Lady Colin Campbell. Who is she?
She's a royal biographer. I believe she's written a rather salacious book on the Queen Mother, which I haven't read. But I imagine she is defending Prince Andrew, saying that he only likes older women. But this is not an affair. This is eating like a box of chocolates or something, this stuff with Jeffrey Epstein. It's not anything that would constitute a relationship.
Or a type,
Or
right?
type, no. And I imagine she wants to keep her contacts. She wants to write another royal biography.
So she's basically saying he could never sleep with someone victimize someone under age because his taste for dating is dating older women. Was Sarah Ferguson older than he was?
I don't believe so. He knew Sarah Ferguson all his life. I believe her father was some kind of riding person there, head of some stable. Not too familiar with Sarah. Don't particularly like her.
And she even enters into this scandal.
She does. She took, because she's always in debt, which I find hard to believe, that she took £25,000 from, or $25,000 from Mr. Epstein, and then regretted it. But I'm sure she has you don't loan people money to strangers. You don't loan money to strangers. I don't think so. They were obviously all friends. And Sarah's a bit dodgy herself.
And Julie K. Brown, who's a journalist for the Miami Herald, tweeted that she believes the other media are afraid to name other names other than Prince Andrew, meaning that Prince Andrew is getting all the attention and other names are being ignored. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree. I think that Prince Andrew is a fairly easy target. He's not an elected official. He's there by birth. And because the palace is always quite secretive, we really don't know these people, we can... there's a little glimpse into who these folks really are, and that is like catnip, we are all excited we get an inside piece, a look at the palace.
And Virginia Roberts Giuffre and her lawyers have asked Prince Andrew to come to the United States to be deposed. Do you think he will do that?
I would not think he can ever come to America again. I don't think he will. I think he's lying. I think they're trying to bait him into a trial to claim that they're lying, and I don't think he'll take the bait. I don't think he's not a very intelligent man, but he's surrounded by a staff that will try and protect him.
So what Virginia Roberts Giuffre is doing is the same reason why she's suing Alan Dershowitz, which we'll talk about in a little while, which is that Alan Dershowitz has called her a liar, and she has a slander suit against him. Right. So that's another way to get these victimizers into court, and put them under oath.
Right.
So she wants Prince Andrew to do sort of the same thing, call her a liar publicly, and I would think that the statement that he released and the palace just denying it isn't enough.
No, I think the palace really doesn't know, or Andrew himself doesn't know what to do. He's really trapped because if he admits to this, then he can't really be a royal prince. Nobody will want him to go and relay wreaths or whatever foolish thing he does, or play golf have golf tournaments or whatever he does. So he can't, and they can't really hide him because that admits guilt, and he really can't go out again because he's guilty. So they're caught. They're trapped.
Do you mean go out? Do you mean come to America? He might
We
get,
can't. Oh, I don't think he can come to America.
or do you just mean go out?
In public and be a. He is an ambassador, a public figure for the Queen. He does.
You think he would be heckled?
I think so. Well, he was in Bruges recently and laying a wreath. He can't do. I mean, if he can't be really a public figure again, but he's trying to be right now a public figure, and I really don't think, according to the Twitter feed, that people really want to hear from him.
Right. The response is all, you're a pedophile,
Wow.
you're an abuser, why don't you be
Right.
deposed, and he had to shut down the comments of his Instagram. Do you think that this, his response and the palace's response would have gone over 20 years ago?
No, I think the Me Too movement has really changed the waterfront. I mean, it used to be that women were either crazy or deluded or not telling liars or just trying to get money, anything to discredit women. But that doesn't really hold now. I think the public believes this story, and Jeffrey Epstein is so extreme that we're all fascinated by it. No, I don't think it plays out anymore.
And Judge Kenneth Mara recently made a ruling that the victims can't receive damages for the illegal plea deal that Jeffrey Epstein got because they were not notified under the Crime Victims Act of the plea deal that Jeffrey Epstein took. But Judge Kenneth Mara said that they can't receive damages, but that they should find solace that they brought attention to the Crime Victims Act.
Well, I think that's old school nonsense, and I feel that the victims need to be somewhat compensated as best we can. They are damaged for life by people like Epstein and Prince Andrew, who take advantage of their position and their wealth and their power. These folks need to be made accountable and to pay for their crimes. And I imagine that ruling will be challenged.
So, what do you think Jeffrey Epstein did for a living?
Wow, that's a mystery, isn't it? He was a physics and math teacher at the elite Dalton School.
With no degree.
No degree. Isn't that bizarre?
I mean, Dalton would be like a Brown University of high school in New
yes,
York.
it's a very elite school. It just isn't. It's very unusual that they would hire someone without
even a college degree.
Absolutely.
There's the corgi.
Okay.
And so they hired him without a college degree.
And some person who worked for Bear Stearns, some parent who worked for Bear Stearns, thought he was so talented that they took him under their wing, and he became a Bear Stearns trader. And
that was kind of a Ponzi scheme, wasn't it?
I don't know. This is just so strange that someone like Mr. Wexler would give him his $73 million huge townhouse, the biggest one in New York, as a gift. Or maybe not. Maybe he blackmailed people. Maybe he was Mossad. I have no idea. But it's certainly mysterious.
And that brings us to Ghislaine Maxwell. Why do you think she hasn't been arrested? And what do you think, why is that, what do you think she did?
Well, she was his madam, his procurer. She was her father was Mossad. Perhaps she's Mossad too. Why she hasn't been arrested is most peculiar. I don't know. I was always fascinated by her father, who seems to have fallen off his yacht.
Or pushed off, some people believe. Right.
Yeah. But he was also robbing pension funds for Berlitz, which he owned. He owned a number of newspapers.
And she, they said that the picture of her with the book about intelligence may have been phony. Mm-hmm. I read an article. So it's hard to know what's real and what's fake, when stories like that come out. You wonder who's muddying the waters.
Right. She's the most strange character. Apparently she ran Jeffrey's homes for him.
And so that brings me to another person involved who you've had strong feelings about for decades, which is Alan Dershowitz, the lawyer that made Epstein's plea deal. Now, you have always, as long as I can remember, have talked about how much you dislike Alan Dershowitz. Why?
It's just a kind of instinctive feeling. I really didn't have much to go on. He just struck me as very creepy. And, ooh, you just kind of wanted to take a bath after looking at him. He just, something maybe very smart, but something morally derelict and peculiar. I never liked him. No.
Well, you have certainly been vindicated now with all this with this story, and he had to retire from his teaching position.
Harvard kept him for years. I mean, and they took a lot of money from Epstein too. I think $6 million. MIT did too. I mean, it doesn't look good that these. Well, Epstein, I think, was interested in science, or said he was.
Right, and you wonder also Bill Gates, I read, was involved giving $2 million to MIT through Epstein. So you wonder what was going on there through his foundation. Why did he need to do it through Epstein? So it just seems like, and the people in Epstein's book, you have Bill Cosby, you have Courtney Love, just a very, Prince Andrew, big, strange mix of powerful people. Murdoch.
Bill Richardson, the governor of New Mexico,
has been named in the...
Yes, and Epstein had a huge place in New Mexico. I don't know, it just is very dark. At the center of power, one gets a glimpse of how dark it is and how these people can do whatever they want to do, and we won't know about it, and they won't be convicted or made to stand account for their behavior.
I think that's a excellent place to stop.
Good. Thank you, darling Roberta. Thank you so much.
Thank you.